3 months after my daughter's wedding, the photographer called me. "Ma'am, you need to see this. I can't hide it anymore." The rain on the tin roof was steady, loud enough to make me feel even smaller, though not quite enough to mask the squeak of rats in the corner. I sat on the edge of the cot, a metal frame that creaked whenever I moved, and watched the water leak through the seam in the ceiling. That was my rhythm now, the slow drip, the smell of damp wood, and the soft hum of the fridge I was not allowed to open. My daughter called it the storage house. I called it what it was, the room where you put someone you once loved but now want to forget. "Mother, please do not make this harder," Grace had said, her voice smooth like glass. "You can still live here, just not in the main house. You know how sensitive Evan's mother is. She needs peace and a clean space." "And I do not?" I had asked. She smiled, that practiced smile people wear when they are embarrassed by someone else. "You do not need much, Mom. You are used to simple things." That was the last conversation we had before I moved my things out. My dresser, the one Walter built for me 50 years ago, did not fit through the door, so Evan helped me carry it out, laughing under his breath like it was a chore no man should ever have to do. "There you go, all set," he said when we left it by the garden fence. "It's not so bad. I had worse places in college." He didn't notice I was crying. Or maybe he did, and that was the part that hurt most. I sat there now, staring at the light bulb that flickered weakly over my head. It had been 3 months since Grace's wedding. I still kept the invitation tucked in my Bible, a habit of holding on to things that hurt. Then the phone rang. I thought it was a wrong number. It had been weeks since anyone called me. The screen said, "Unknown." I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Mrs. Turner?" A man's voice. Nervous, low. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Mason. I was the photographer at your daughter's wedding." My heart thudded once. "Oh, did you need something?" "No, ma'am. I needed to tell you something. I found a clip, something I wasn't supposed to see. I've kept it for 3 months, but I can't anymore. You need to see this." My fingers trembled. "What kind of clip?" "It's from the reception. I'm sending it now. Check your email." The line went silent. I turned on the old laptop Grace had donated to me 2 years ago, one missing key, screen cracked in the corner. When I opened the email, the subject line read, "I'm sorry I waited this long." I pressed play. The video was shaky, like someone had been walking past the buffet table. Evan was there, in his tailored suit, holding 2 glasses of orange juice. Grace stood beside him in her white gown, smiling, radiant to everyone but me. She leaned close to the server and whispered something. The man hesitated, looked confused, then laughed nervously. The camera caught just enough to hear it. Evan's voice, clear, "Just a little. It'll calm her down. Nothing deadly, don't worry. We just want her quiet for one night." Grace giggled. "Maybe it'll help her stomach for good." Then she looked at the glass. "The one with the straw is hers." The clip ended there. I felt the air leave my body. My fingers went numb. I remembered that moment, the glass of orange juice Evan handed me before the toast. I thanked him. Half an hour later, I was clutching my stomach, sweating, apologizing to guests for being dramatic as I was helped out of the hall. I had spent that night in the hospital, alone. The doctor said I might have eaten something that triggered my ulcer. Grace did not visit. She texted me, "Mom, please stop making scenes. This was supposed to be my day." I sat still for what felt like hours, staring at the laptop screen long after it went black. The rain grew heavier, and I could smell the earth outside turning to mud. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I replayed the clip, over and over. Maybe it was fake. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe the audio was added later. But deep down, I knew the tone of my daughter's laughter. I knew the way she smirked when she thought she was untouchable. I knew Evan's arrogance when he felt above consequence. And I remembered the weeks that followed the unexplained pain in my stomach, the weight loss, the exhaustion. Grace said I was being dramatic. Evan suggested it was age. They both laughed when I told them I had been to the doctor. "Old people always think they are dying," he said. I closed the laptop and stared at my hands. The skin was thinner now, lined like an old map. For years, I thought those lines led to peace. Tonight, they led to the truth. My daughter had once held my face in her little hands and said, "When I grow up, I'll take care of you forever." She had, just not in the way I imagined. I sat back on the cot, the metal cold against my back, and whispered to no one, "You gave me life once, Grace. And now, you're taking it back." The rain outside eased into a steady rhythm, almost gentle. I closed my eyes, not to rest, but to remember, because forgetting her cruelty would have been easier. And I was not ready for easy anymore. I worked as a seamstress for 30 years, sewing for others, never for myself. When Walter was alive, we did not have riches, but we had rhythm. He was calm, patient, the kind of man who could fix a pipe with one hand and hold your heart steady with the other. When his chest gave out one afternoon in the garden, I remember thinking the world had stopped breathing too. He left behind a small pension, a modest house, and a daughter who was too young to understand what grief does to a woman with bills. Grace was 15. I took on extra work from home. The machines never stopped humming. There were nights when my fingers bled through the needle. I remember telling myself it was worth it she would go to college. She would never have to count coins the way I did. And for a while, she was sweet, helpful. She would bring me tea while I worked late, humming the same tune I used to sing to her when she was a child. "You work too much, Mama," she used to say. "One day, I'll make enough for both of us." But love has a way of changing shape when pride walks in. When she got into the state university on a scholarship, the first in our family to do so, she started to talk differently. The girl who once wore thrift store shoes now rolled her eyes when I mentioned sewing. "That's not real work," she said once. "It's survival." She said it with pity, the kind that cuts deeper than anger. Walter's old friend, a retired accountant, had given her a small grant fund to help with tuition, saying it was the least he could do for Walter's daughter. Grace told everyone her father made sure she'd be taken care of, as if I had not been the one patching our lives together since the day he died. College changed her faster than I expected. She came home for Thanksgiving that first year with polished nails and a tone that didn't belong to her. "Mom, you should take a computer class," she told me while scrolling through her phone. "You sound old." "I am old," I said. "That's what happens when you live long enough." She sighed. "You don't have to be proud of it." It wasn't pride, it was endurance. But she didn't see the difference. By the time she was 19, she was living off campus with a boy named Dylan. I never liked him too slick, too certain, the kind who hides insults behind compliments. I visited her once and found her crying in the bathroom, a bruise on her arm. She said she'd fallen. I knew better. When I told her to leave him, she said, "You don't understand love, Mom. You never did." A week later, she came to my house with a split lip. I called the police. She begged me not to, but I did. I thought I was saving her. The officers came, Dylan was arrested for assault, and the school suspended Grace's scholarship until the case was reviewed. She screamed at me like I was the one who hit her. "You ruined my life," she cried. "Do you even know what you've done?" "I did what any mother would," I said. "I kept you alive." "Alive," she spat. "You just made me poor again." That was the day she moved out. We did not speak for almost a year. I sent her letters she never answered. I left voicemails that always went to silence. When the case closed and Dylan took a plea deal, she told everyone I had exaggerated, that I was controlling, that I needed professional help. I was no longer her mother. I was a mistake she needed to erase. Years later, when she graduated, she invited me to the ceremony but asked me to sit in the back, where it's less crowded. She did not introduce me to anyone. She told people I was her aunt who raised her after her parents passed. It took everything in me not to correct her. I stood there holding flowers, pretending that lie didn't hurt. Afterward, she hugged me quickly, like a handshake. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You didn't have to." I wanted to tell her that everything she was, every paper, every book, Every late-night study session had my fingerprints on it. But she had already turned away. I kept sewing, kept paying her student loans when she was short, even after she stopped saying thank you. She met Evan through a charity gala, hosted by her department. He was older, charming, a man who said the right things and looked expensive while doing it. When she brought him home the first time, he shook my hand and said, "You've done well, Mrs. Turner. Raising a woman like Grace on a seamstress's wage must have been difficult." Grace laughed. "Mom's tougher than she looks." "Toughness can be unattractive in women," he replied with a smirk. She didn't correct him. She just smiled. That night, after they left, I sat in the dark living room and stared at Walter's photograph. "You would have seen through him," I whispered. "You always did." The following months were a blur of wedding talk, budgeting, and new boundaries. I was told not to embarrass her by wearing anything homemade to the engagement party. "People will think we're poor," she said. "We are," I replied. "That's what makes this real." She didn't answer. The last real conversation we had before the wedding was short and sharp. She came to the house to collect her birth certificate for some paperwork. I asked her if she was happy. She said she was, then turned around and looked me in the eye. "You know, if you hadn't called the cops that night, my life would have been easier. I would have kept my scholarship. I wouldn't have needed to rely on Evan. Everything bad that's ever happened started with you." I felt my knees weaken. "I saved your life. You destroyed it," she snapped. "You ruin everything you touch, so please, stay out of this one. Don't come to the wedding if you plan to cry or make a scene. Just smile for the pictures and be grateful I'm letting you be there." Her words echoed long after she slammed the door. I didn't cry then. I just stood there, my hands trembling, realizing that somewhere along the line, my daughter had turned into a stranger who blamed me for her own choices. And the worst part was, she was right about one thing: I had ruined something. Not her life, my own peace. Because I loved her more than my own dignity, and she knew it. When I stepped into their living room for the first time after the wedding, the air smelled of fresh paint, of champagne, and of promises I did not belong to. I had come because Grace asked me to help with the decor, just for the weekend, while she and Evan settled into their new home. I lugged my sewing kit and a tray of pastries I had made that morning. They said thank you once, but the way Evan glanced at me afterward, as though I might stain the label on his designer jacket, told me the change would come. I was shown to a small room at the back of the house, tucked behind the piano and the guest bathroom, partitioned by a folding screen, furnished with an old armchair and my suitcase. "It is temporary," Grace had said brightly. "Once my mother arrives, you'll have the upstairs room." I nodded, because I had no choice. My life had taught me that no matter how hard you work or how much you love, you could still be sidelined. So I moved into their house, but not into their home. I washed dishes late at night while their laughter echoed in the front hall. When I overheard Evan tell one of his friends, "I cannot believe she is still here, like an extra sofa we forgot to remove," my hands froze in the warm water. It was true. I was decorative, not family. Weeks passed. The mother-in-law arrived, an elegant woman from New York, so Grace delivered the verdict. "Mom, the room upstairs is for her now. You'll need to take your things out of there. The storage house will be better for you." Storage house is a euphemism. I packed a few bags, left behind the quilt made by Walter, my husband, and moved into a former workshop at the edge of the property, a dusty space with a mattress on a concrete floor, no closet, a single overhead bulb. I ate leftovers from their meals, or sometimes nothing at all, while they sat at their dining table with friends. I was told the washing machine was too loud, so I used the basement's old hand-powered washer once a week. I did not have a house key. I entered when Grace permitted. One spring afternoon, the gardener let me in when I arrived early to bring fresh lettuce from my neighbor's garden. Evan paused at the door and said, "Oh, I thought you forgot? We'll let Grace know you're already here." And then came the party, Grace's achievement celebration, they called it. I stood near the drink station, holding a tray of fruit skewers I had arranged myself. I heard Evan introduce me to a friend. "She is our old housekeeper from before we moved into the city. Grace was kind enough to let her stay with us for now." My heart pounded. Grace approached, bent close, and whispered, "Mom, don't show up in the pictures. You embarrass me." I felt the blood rush upward, like the heat of a burst furnace. The tray in my hand rocked. I nodded and stepped back. The pictures were taken. I stayed behind a pillar, somewhere out of focus, invisible by design. Afterward, I returned to my tiny storage house room. I sat on the mattress and touched the quilt Walter had made me once. Its stitches loosened. The colors faded. I thought of how I once held Grace in my arms the first night I brought her home from the hospital, humming songs so she'd sleep, and how now she told me I was a stain. I washed the dishes late that night. My body ached from bending. My soul ached more. I tried to quiet the voice inside. Was it wrong to stay silent all those years? Was it wrong to believe love would protect us from being erased? I could not find an answer. I remembered the day I found Grace's final text before the wedding. "You broke our family. Do not come unless you look the part, clean, quiet, small." I deleted it after I read it. I kept it in my memory. And then the recognition dawned. I was not staying for love. I was staying because I feared being without them, and that fear was costing me everything. That night, I lay awake in the mattress, the rain tapping on the corrugated iron roof. I listened to the gusts through the cracked window and promised myself, this cannot be forever. I went to the hospital alone. The walk from the bus stop to the clinic felt longer than usual, the air thick and sticky, the kind of heat that presses against your lungs. I had been feeling the pain for weeks, sharp, burning, the kind that steals your breath in the middle of the night. I told myself it was just stress, that maybe I had eaten something too acidic, but when I started tasting blood at the back of my throat, I knew it was time. The doctor was young, polite but detached, reading my chart without looking at me. "You said this has been going on for 3 months?" he asked. I nodded. "And you've had stomach ulcers before?" "Years ago," I said, "after my husband died." He tapped his pen, thoughtful. "Your blood work shows chemical irritation, not food-related. It looks like something synthetic, perhaps a medication reaction, or accidental exposure to a compound not meant for long-term ingestion." I stared at him. "You mean poison?" He frowned. "I didn't say that. But it's possible you've been taking something your body can't handle. Could someone be giving you medication, maybe vitamins or supplements you didn't buy yourself?" I felt my chest tighten. Grace had been giving me digestive support capsules for months, saying they'd help me stay healthy. She'd bought them online, a new organic brand, she said. The doctor scheduled more tests. I left the office with a cold weight in my stomach that had nothing to do with the pain. When I got home, I dug through the cabinet under the sink where I kept the pill bottle. The label was in small print. I looked up the manufacturer on my phone. Nothing came up. No company website. No customer reviews. Nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I turned on the small lamp and stared at Walter's old photo on the nightstand. His smile was calm, reassuring. "You always saw things before I did," I whispered. "What would you see now?" The next morning, I called an old friend of his, Jerry Milton, a lawyer who had handled Walter's small investments. He sounded surprised to hear from me. "Linda Turner? My God, it's been years. How are you?" "I need your help," I said. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. He still wore the same brown tie and had the same soft voice, but his eyes sharpened when I told him what had happened. "You're saying your daughter and her husband have access to Walter's estate?" "I don't know," I said. "But something's wrong. They've been spending money that doesn't make sense. New cars, new furniture, and I never signed anything." He pulled out his laptop, typed for a few minutes, and frowned. "There's a trust in Walter's name that was modified right after the wedding. It used to be for you, Linda. Now it lists the Grace and Evan Family Development Fund as the managing entity. It transferred roughly $300,000 out of your account last summer." I felt dizzy. "That's impossible. Walter's account was closed after his death." Jerry turned the screen toward me. "Not entirely. There was an authorization letter with your signature." I leaned in. The document glowed blue on the screen. My name was there, curling in my familiar script, except it wasn't mine. The loops were wrong, too neat, too even. Grace had learned to mimic my handwriting years ago, when she used to sign my name on school reports. "Can you prove it's fake?" I whispered. He nodded. "Yes, but it'll take time. Do you want to file a claim?" I hesitated. Filing meant war. Filing meant acknowledging that my own daughter had betrayed me. "Give me a few days," I said. That night, I gathered every document I could find, old bank statements, letters from Walter's insurance, even birthday cards that showed my real handwriting. I kept them in a plastic folder under the cot. The next morning, I went to the main house. Grace was arranging flowers in the living room, humming softly. Evan sat at the table, reading the paper, pretending not to see me. "Grace," I said, "we need to talk." She didn't look up. "About what?" "About the trust, and about Walter's money." Evan lowered his paper slowly, a smile playing on his lips. "Here we go," he murmured. Grace finally turned to me, her expression blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You forged my signature," I said quietly. "You and your husband transferred the money into your names." Her eyebrows lifted in mock surprise. "Forged? That's a serious accusation, Mom." "I've seen the documents." She sighed, as if I were a child who had spilled milk on the floor. "Mom, you wouldn't understand how estate funds work. Evan helped organize things. Everything we did was legal." "Legal?" I said, my voice shaking. "You took what wasn't yours." She set the vase down carefully. "He was my father too, you know. Maybe not by blood, but he raised me. He wanted me to have security." "Walter left everything to me," I said. "He trusted me to take care of you." "And you did," she snapped. "You took care of me so much that I almost died of your control. You called the police on my boyfriend. You ruined my life. Maybe this is the universe balancing things out." Her tone was cold, clinical. Evan folded his newspaper and leaned back. "You have a roof, don't you? Food? We're taking care of you. You should be grateful, not suspicious." I took a step closer. "You gave me pills that made me sick. Evan chuckled. "Pills? Those were supplements. Maybe your body just couldn't handle health." Grace's eyes flickered. She knew I knew. I looked at her and saw nothing of the girl I had raised. Just calculation. Just justification. "You took my husband's legacy," I said softly. "And you took your mother's trust. How much more do you plan to take?" She crossed her arms. "He left you money you didn't earn. He left it because you were there. But who built the reputation that pays for this house? Who works with real people now? Me. And I'm done apologizing for outgrowing you." Evan smirked. "You should go rest, Linda. Old people shouldn't stress over finances." Something in me snapped then, not with shouting, not with rage, but with a strange, clean calm. "I will rest," I said, "after I take back what's mine." Grace's face hardened. "Mom, you can't win this. You don't even have proof." I smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised what a mother keeps." I walked out, my hands trembling, but my spine straight. For the first time in years, I was not silent. I was awake. I did not expect the letter to come in the mail so quickly. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, plain white envelope, no frills, addressed in handwriting I recognized but did not want to admit. I opened it while sitting at the kitchen table in the little church basement kitchen where I had been staying. The linoleum floor had cracks, the window overlooked a rusty storage shed, and the hum of the heater sounded like an engine in the distance. I stared at the words inside. "You are hereby directed to vacate the premises located at 348 Maple Grove Drive, effective immediately." Grace's signature, clear, sharp, and final. Evan's name stamped below. My heart slowed. I felt something break quietly inside me. Not just hurt, something colder. Recognition. I grabbed the letter and did what I should have done months ago. I stood up. I backed the chair in with a scrape, and I left the church kitchen. Outside the door, the afternoon light was pale, as though the sky had paused. I held the letter in my hand, feeling the weight of it. They were not inviting me to leave. They were telling me I had no place left. Earlier that morning, I had phoned the police. I shuffled through my folder of documents, statements from the doctor, receipts for the mysterious capsules Grace had given me, the trust transfer papers Jerry had found. I could taste the vinegar of anger in my mouth. The officer listened politely, asked questions I had answered 100 times. "We'll look into it," he said. "But you should consider legal counsel." I thanked him, hung up. The folder lay heavy in my lap like a Bible of failures. When I arrived at the house later, I discovered the new lock on the gate. The key I used to carry, metallic, familiar, no longer turned. I stood on the sidewalk, rain spattering the pavement. I felt like I was outside my memory. The house I had co-raised a daughter in, the house Walter and I had held together looked unmarked, and yet everything was changed. Grace came out to meet me. Her eyes were flat. "Mom," she said, "we've asked you many times. We need the room. Please just take your things." Her voice was soft, but I heard the glass break. "You're doing this to me," I said. "You're throwing your mother out." She shrugged. "We are doing what is best for the family." Evan appeared behind her, hands in his pockets. He offered nothing. I swallowed. I felt the old fear creep in, the one I had fought for decades, but this time I refused to bow. "Your family," I said. "Did you forget whose shoulders carried you here?" Grace's face hardened. "That was a long time ago." I felt tears, but they came slowly, as if I'd waited too long. "This letter," I held it forward, "is your idea of care." She took a step back. "If you keep causing trouble—" "Trouble?" I cut in. "I called the police because you were bleeding under his roof. I came here because I believed you needed me. You sent me to a shed, and now you blame me for being hurt?" She looked away. Evan stepped in. "Linda, we don't want conflict. If you leave quietly, you'll be fine." "You'll be fine?" I said. "I'll be fine now?" My voice rose. The kitchen upstairs rattled with voices and laughter from their dinner party. I felt more visible in that moment than I had in months. "Fine now," I said, "because I am choosing something else." I gathered my folder and walked past them. The front door swung shut behind me. I felt the click like a verdict. I found the church basement apartment that night. The pastor met me with a casserole dish and coffee. "Take your time," he said gently. "We have a spare room for as long as you need." I sat at the small table and stared at my reflection in the window, a woman in a cardigan, gray hair pulled back, eyes tired but not broken. I looked like the woman I had been, and the woman I had become. The pillow was thin, the mattress older than the house, but the window looked out onto a patch of sky, and I remembered how Walter and I used to lie on the lawn and count stars during summer. The memory gave me something I did not expect: hope. Not a loud hope, but a quiet one. One that said, "You will survive this." That evening, Grace texted, "We've had to initiate eviction proceedings. I hope you understand." I deleted the message. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt confirmed. They thought pushing me out meant the story ended. They thought sending me away would bury the evidence. But as I sat in that room, the folder open on the table, the test results showing chemical irritation, the trust transfer printouts, the doctor's note about my ulcers, they all spoke the truth, and I will let them speak. Before I left the house for the last time, I looked back. The yard glowed under porch light, the wedding light still wrapped around a tree. I approached the doorframe, and I said softly, so Grace and Evan could hear if they were watching, "You think kicking me out is the end? No, it is the beginning of justice." I walked forward, leaving the gate behind me. A soft thunder rolled in the distance. I felt not fear, but liberation. The night the video went public, I was in the basement apartment, folding laundry under the single bulb overhead, the hum of the heater buzzing like a warning. I heard the ping of my phone and glanced at the screen. 2,000 unread notifications. One headline in bold: "Mother-in-law exposed in wedding reception video." My heart lurched. Earlier, the photographer Mason had told me he was going to publish. "People need to see what they did," he said over the phone, voice wavering. I didn't ask him to. I only nodded, my voice too small to surrender. And now it was out. I walked outside into the chill evening. The street lamps in Atlanta were weak, but the breeze cut deeper than usual. My folder was in my bag, doctor's notes about chemical stomach irritation, the trust document showing $300,000 transferred, the pill bottles with no clear label. I felt oddly prepared. The video Mason posted showed Evan handing me the orange juice at the reception, the one with the extra straw. It zoomed in on Grace and the server, laughing quietly at the side stage. A clip of Evan's phone screen showing the words, "Safe for now." It was short, but enough. Enough so that the comments started, "That's elder financial abuse. He exploited his mother-in-law. She thought she was family, she was property." It was true. 5 hours later, the news outlets picked it up. Georgia's elder abuse scandal became the headline. The law shows that abuse of older adults, especially when involving financial exploitation, is a crime. My case was banner news because the perpetrator was the daughter and son-in-law. It was shocking but not surprising to me. When I returned home to the church basement, Jerry the lawyer was on FaceTime. "Linda," he said, eyes bright, "I've filed the civil complaint against them for financial exploitation, for endangerment of an elder, for abuse of trust. And criminal investigators are asking questions." My throat closed. I nodded. I did want this. By the next week, Grace's email at work said, "Suspended pending investigation." Evan's business license was under review. Clients were pulling out. They were panicking. I visited the judge's chamber with Jerry. I felt the carpet beneath my feet, and it no longer shook. I felt calm. I looked at the gallery of reporters in the courtroom and realized the world was listening. During the hearing, Grace rose, her voice cutting. "You always held me back, Mom. You never understood ambition. You never wanted more than a homemade dress and a small house. I worked hard. I deserve this." I waited. My turn came. I stood slowly, looking at her. "No," I said, voice soft. "I did not hold you back. I taught you to obey, but I did not teach you kindness, and that is the mistake I cannot forgive." Her face twisted. Evan fidgeted. The judge paused the proceeding, but the moment rippled. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. The gallery nodded. Weeks later, the verdict came. The court reversed the trust. The estate of Walter was awarded back to me, payment for the financial damage, and full ownership of the property. Grace and Evan were ordered to pay restitution and barred from managing any fund that collects donations for 2 years. I sat in the courtroom after the ruling, the air cool, the files heavy on the bench. I felt neither gloat nor hatred. I felt something rare, justice. The judge's clerk handed me a manila envelope with the order. I opened it. I saw my name as sole beneficiary, the page below listing the prohibited parties. My breath caught. Outside, reporters asked me questions. I stood to the side. "What do you feel?" one asked. I said, "I feel seen," and walked away. I still get tagged in articles. Grandma who beat her daughter in court. Victim becomes victor. But I do not watch them. I know the truth that I lived. It sings in the quiet of my new home, in the morning sunlight through the clean windows, in the absence of fear. Grace and Evan are still part of my past. They are no longer part of my future. They will not dismiss me again. They will not pretend I did not exist. They will not think I cannot fight. Because now, I fight for peace. I fight for dignity. And I fight for the ones like me, quiet mothers, who thought they would be loved, but were used instead. They believed they had eliminated me. They believed I would vanish. But I am still here. Stronger. And heard. I saw her from across the room before she saw me. Grace stood in the foyer of the old church building, its stained glass windows glowing faintly in the afternoon light, looking smaller than I remembered. Her shoulders slumped. The tailored suit she wore looked too sharp for a woman who felt broken. I held the folder with the scholarship fund paperwork loosely in one hand, and the other hand kept brushing at a crease in my cardigan. The pastor had quietly told me, "She'll be arriving any minute." I nodded, not because I expected reunion or forgiveness, but because I believed in a simple truth. She came because she had no one left. She took a few steps forward and paused. Her eyes found mine. Then she dropped her gaze. Her voice came, soft and uneven. "Mom, I sat in the pew near the entrance. a space now assigned to me during my time here. I kept my back straight, my face steady. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never wanted to. I know what I did. Please forgive me." She took a breath. "I lost my job. I lost everything. I don't care about the house or the money or the image anymore. I care about you." I closed my eyes for a moment. The memory of the video, the leaked files, the courtroom, all of it flashed past. The pain, the betrayal, the nights I swallowed pills in silence so I could keep breathing. When I opened my eyes, Grace was waiting. I said nothing. She knelt beside me. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I thought I was protecting my future, but I was destroying your life instead." She looked up, tears forming. "I was wrong. So wrong. I hope one day you'll let me back in." I stood and reached out a hand. Grace flinched. She held out hers. Our fingers touched briefly. I said, "Grace, you poisoned your mother's heart and hollowed out her trust. Words now are comfort for you, not justice for me." She cried quietly. Evan's name came out between sobs. He pushed me into it. He told me I deserved better. He made me complicit, but I took the pen. I signed. I let that hang. I held for seconds that felt like years. "Your reckoning is with him." Grace looked confused. "You forgive me?" "No." I shook my head softly. "Not yet." Then I handed her a letter. "Here's something I prepared. If you want to learn again, you can apply. No salaries, just study. For women who were told they were too old, too used up, too uneducated." Her brow furrowed. "What is this?" "A scholarship fund," I said, "because I never want what happened to me, what you helped happen to someone else." Grace's tears stopped, and she said nothing. I walked toward the exit. Before I opened the door, I looked back. She was still there, kneeling, the folder open in front of her. Her face was white in the fading light. Outside, the air felt clean. I breathed deeply, not because I had reached peace, but because I was moving toward it. And for the first time in years, the future stretched wide ahead of me with no demands, no roles, no fear. The sun was soft against the porch, casting long shadows over the old rocking chair I now called my own. I cradled a warm cup of tea in both hands, letting the steam rise and fade before I took a small sip. This house was modest, a 2-bedroom cottage tucked away on a quiet street in Atlanta, but it belonged to me. For the first time in years, I knew what it meant to have a home instead of being in someone else's. I had accepted a position at the Elm Street Senior Support Center 3 weeks ago. My job, front desk coordinator for older adults who had been neglected, abandoned, or simply forgotten. It wasn't grand, but it was honest. It was needed. And every time I signed in a new visitor or helped someone get paperwork done for their benefits, I felt a little less invisible. That morning as I walked in, I adjusted my name tag. Linda Turner. The receptionist before me nodded. I smiled, remembering the day I carried a tray of fruit at my daughter's wedding and overheard the glib comment, "She's our old housekeeper from before we moved into the city." This time, I was frontline staff, equal and useful. At exactly 10:15 a.m., the door chimed. She entered, Grace, in a trimmed blazer, carrying a thin folder. Her face was pale, her eyes flickered with something I recognized. Hesitation, regret. I watched from behind the counter as she approached. I rose and greeted her. "Good morning, how can I help you today?" Grace swallowed. I need to apply for the vocational training program." She held out the folder. I glanced at it. The program was for women older than 40, seeking a new trade, exactly the kind of resource I had helped design a few days earlier. I reached to take the folder but then paused. I considered Grace, the face who said, "Mother, you embarrass me at the wedding." The daughter who had anointed huge family success at the expense of the woman who raised her. The folder sat on the desk. I picked it up, then gently handed it to my colleague in the cubicle next door, saying, "We'll process this and call you, ma'am." Grace's lips parted, her eyes wide. She stood still, not ready to leave, not ready to speak. I looked away, checking the computer screen. Then I turned back. Grace was gone. I exhaled slowly. Later, I told myself it wasn't about cruelty, it was about boundaries, about being seen and respected, about giving what I had withheld, fairness. I did not stop Grace from applying, but I didn't give her the seat at my desk. And that choice felt like healing. That evening, I returned to the cottage. I unlocked the door with my own key, no permission needed. I placed my bag by the fireplace and sat down on the porch chair. The sky blushed pink. I opened my journal and wrote, "My dear Eleanor, I once was shoved out of the very room I built, told to stay silent so I would not embarrass others. Tonight, I sit with tea and wind that speaks only my name. I choose the room I occupy, and I choose who walks through the door. With love, Linda." I closed the journal and leaned back. The rocking chair creaked gently. A breeze stirred the leaves in the garden. I realized something. Freedom was not loud. It did not demand vengeance or recognition. It simply arrived when you stopped waiting for permission. I sipped my tea. I watched the shadows lengthen. The world was quiet. For perhaps the first time, so was my heart. And in that silence, I knew I was home. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the quiet strength of the women who came before us, or the pain some of them still carry in silence, please don't let it end here. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories to keep these voices alive. Every listen, every share, every comment helps bring light to the forgotten corners of our lives. Justice doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives in a teacup, on a quiet porch, with the door locked from the inside. I'm Linda, and I was once kicked out of my own room. But now I choose who walks in. See you in the next story.